and welcome to the Mental Toughness Minute. This is a short video where I expand on one of the little brief articles I write within my newsletter each month. In the newsletter, it's called the Mental Toughness Minute. That's because it's just meant to take a minute for you to read it and have a bit of a think about how you might be able to apply it. But I've had a lot of feedback, so these videos are just me expanding on those points a little bit more and just giving you a little bit more detail. So for this video, we're focusing on 3 ways to reset after a setback. So a setback, how I'm defining that, is the very nature of what the word is. It's a setback. It's something maybe we didn't want to have happen, we hadn't planned on happening. Unfortunately, it's happened, whatever the thing might be. Maybe we were striving for a goal and we didn't quite get there. Maybe we tried to do a task and we didn't quite get up to scratch, and someone's given us some feedback and we're trying to absorb that, whatever it might be. Maybe we're coming back from an injury. Maybe there's been a change in our circumstances. Whatever it is, something hasn't gone to plan, and we want to find ways that we can reset ourselves so we can, dust ourselves off a little bit and get ourselves moving forward as best as we can, perhaps having learnt some of the lessons of whatever the circumstances was. So let's have a look at the 3 key things that you can do to help you to reset after we experience a setback. The first thing is, and I think this is really important because it fits in with a mantra that I often use, and the mantra is that success leaves clues and disappointments offer lessons. So success leaves clues and disappointments offer lessons. So our setbacks are certainly our disappointments, and we can certainly be annoyed with that. We can be frustrated with that. It is really normal to have an emotional response when things don't go to plan. I'd be worried if you didn't, to be honest. And I know certainly for me, whenever I have a setback, there's always a bit of emotion that goes with it. But what is also sitting there, and it'd be such a shame if we missed out on seeing it, is there's also a lesson in there. So if, let me think, what could be a good example? So let's say I start my week off feeling really disorganized, not feeling quite on top of things, not getting things done as I want to. So I might have a look at myself and go, well, what's the lesson in here? Well, the lesson in here is I didn't spend any time on the weekend preparing for the week ahead. I didn't spend any time on the weekend having rest and recuperation. I, had a fairly full-on weekend and went to bed late and didn't eat that well and so forth. So the lessons for me might be a bit of planning, a bit of self-care, a bit of nutrition might be the things that help me set myself up well for the week. I know that certainly is the case for me most weeks. So in every disappointment, there will be a lesson. It's okay to feel the feels. In fact, that's a really important thing to do. But it's also really important that we learn the lesson, because then we can take wisdom from the scenario and maybe we can set ourselves up in the future that perhaps we don't experience that setback again. So the first thing is to name the lesson. How am I smarter now that I've gone through this scenario, whatever that it might be? The other thing that is really helpful, I love this one, it's one of my favorites, is to separate the fact from the story. So in any scenario, there are things that we know to be true. So I am recording this video on a Wednesday, and that is true. And so, a fact is very difficult to argue with. People might try and tell me it's Monday or it's Friday, and they can try and tell me all they like, but I did just double check my phone before I got on this video. It's definitely Wednesday today. So the facts are the things that we absolutely know to be true. I walked in the door to work at 8 a.m. might be a fact, because that was the time that I came through the door. Maybe I even had a timestamp. I went to the gym yesterday. That is something that can be verified. I actually did do that. What we also have in addition to the facts in our lives is we have the stories. And the stories can be quite varied. So the stories might be, I worked really hard today. Or, I kind of eased off a little bit and didn't work so hard today. It might be, that thing that you just said to me was unkind. So that is a story that I'm creating for myself. You used words, used intent, you used tone, all of those things. And from that, I have surmised that you were being unkind to me. Now, maybe you were, maybe you weren't. Maybe you actually thought you were giving me some pretty honest feedback and you were actually being kind by giving me that feedback. And we do know feedback is kindness when it's delivered well. But being able to separate the facts from the stories. I know that this is, what do I know that is true? And what is the story that I have created for myself on the back of this situation, and separating those two things for what they are. Because we know that if you take any two people and put them through the same scenario, it's just as likely they will create very different stories for themselves about that particular scenario. The other thing we want to do when we, actually, let me go back to one more example. Let's just say I've had a big project, I've worked really hard at it, and it hasn't gone to plan. And let's say I've written a book and not many copies have sold. That would be a disappointment. So I've written a book and not many stories have sold. And then I tell myself that's because I'm a terrible writer. Okay, that is a good example of the story. Okay, what is true is that you've released a book and at this stage you've sold 10 copies, say. But what is debatable, the stories are always debatable. The story I might tell myself in that moment is I'm no good at this, I'm terrible at this. I always muck these things up. Those are stories that I tell myself. They are very different from the facts. So just thought that was a good example there as that occurred to me. The other thing that we know that can really help us in terms of resetting after a setback is getting back into some sort of action as soon as we can. So absolutely, like I said before, feel the feels. So if it's been something particularly significant and you're upset about it and you want to have a moment, have a moment. Have a little bit of time. Take a deep breath, go for a walk around the block, go and make a cup of tea, cry if you need to, whatever the thing might be. So spend some time with the emotion and let yourself pass through that. And once you have done that, find an action. And it doesn't have to be a big action. It might be that off the back of the scenario, you want to do some writing and journaling and noting some points about why you think it went the way that it did. It might be that you want to make a phone call to someone you can go and have a conversation with and say, hey, I've had this happen to me. Can I chat it through with you? There might be another project that you have in the making that you know where you will have some success, and so you want to do those things. So the actions don't have to be big, but what I would say to you is finding something that you can do soon is great. And the reason for that is because we build momentum off action. So, whenever we're not feeling motivated, if you don't sit around and wait to feel motivated because you'll be sitting for a while, it usually comes from doing some sort of action. So action can be our friend when we've been through a setback. So hopefully those 3 points are helpful for you. Name the lesson, separate the facts from the stories, and find some way to act soon. They're 3 things that I love to do when I go through a setback, which we all do from time to time. Would love to stay in contact with you. So if you don't already receive my Locker Room newsletter, then you can subscribe to it. It'll just get sent to you automatically, come straight to your inbox. That comes through once a month. You can visit my website, and that is one of the places where you can find to subscribe to the newsletter, or you can do it here on the YouTube channel. And so visit my website. There's lots of resources and things on there. Lets you know some of the stuff that I'm doing as well. I have a regular weekly podcast that I put out on Spotify and Audible. It's on all the usual channels where you might find your podcast. It's called The Locker Room, and they're particularly the interviews that I do through the media. So there's over 250 episodes there, so plenty for you to listen to there. And of course, very proud to say that I've been able to write some books on some of the areas that I'm really passionate about and the areas that people tell me that they want more information on. So there's always access to those. You can find those wherever you normally buy your books. Perhaps you like to listen to audio books. Perhaps you like to read ebooks. Maybe you can support your local independent bookstore, or you can find them on my website or all the big platforms as well. As always, very much appreciate any feedback on the videos, and if there's a particular mental toughness minute that you'd like me to cover, then please just let me know.